Hi guys, so I'm looking at lab 1 now, and I've loaded up my local instance, and I like to use the local instance just because it's kind of easier not to mess up things for everyone else. But feel free to run this in the main lab as well. But here, when I click on the lab files that I've shared, you can see I've got the additional labs. So click on NTFS, we have the instructions here. I'm going to just go to this gist and hit this page. Literally, it should be easy enough as long as you're admin in your ISC. This one, it doesn't matter if you don't need to disable Defender or anything, and it should just work. And what we're doing in this script is just downloading some files to perf logs, and then messing with messing with some NTFS permissions. So we're going to hit play on that. Might take a few minutes because it's literally downloading files from sysinternals. It's also, I think it's loading calc and then doing a process dump to perf logs, and then it's zipping up the process dump and deleting the file. It's pausing for a bit. Yeah, you can see there. So what we can do is just close this down. Open up a GUI again, if I can find it. And you can run a hunt. You can run a notebook. So say I want to run a notebook. I can create a new notebook and call it maybe NTFS view. This is kind of advanced using notebook this way. We're not running the traditional use, so it's up to you if you want to use it this way. I do lots of dev this way because I call lots of other artifacts, but I can add in like VQL. And when you're calling an artifact, it's select star from, you need to put the artifact prefix on. So windows.ntfs dot, then we're interested in the MF10. And if you notice, I'm using the autocomplete to make it easier. What we're interested in path regex, and we're looking at C perf logs. If you notice, I'm putting in the 3 commas here, and then that means I only need to do a single escape. Because I'm using notebook, I'd need to do 2 double escape if I wasn't. So I hit play on that, and while I'm doing that, I'll open up a new kind of section, and we'll just do this collection against the machine. You can see that's returning results anyway. But I think it's good to get the overview of like being able to run VQL elsewhere as well. I've already run a bunch of stuff here, but I'll rerun it. So NTFS .mft. And same thing, right? Here you just need to do a single escape because it's likes to be confusing. It's the difference in the GUI versus notebook. And like I said before, this is probably the most confusing part for a new user. Is like where do I escape? So single escape here, you don't need to worry about parentheses or anything like that. Although you can if you want to use it in regex. But when I launch that, it will go out and collect all the details. I'll click on show additional NTFS. I'll just add another field with NTFS attributes that might be useful. And it will go off and run the collection as well. What's kind of interesting is like you don't see the other collection I ran in Notebook in here is because it's not part of the client kind of queries. It's actually running as a server. So by running in Notebook, it's like you're running a server artifact. So that's finished, and you can see we've got our results pane. One thing I didn't actually cover in the main kind of walkthrough is we can actually download results from here, right? So you just hit prepare download, and then it will produce like a summary zip that will have like the CSV, it will have JSON of like the results, and it will also have the raw results in the collection. So a lot of people will run a hunt and then just collect that zip file, and it will have a JSON that they can ingest into other tools if they want, or do some offline analysis. But anyway, we've got a whole bunch of stuff here, and calls for Notebook. If you hit Notebook, we don't really care too much for this lab in terms of what we want. So let's just look at OS path, and you'll notice there's also a file, a full path as well in some versions. This is just a difference in how we kind of parse or what object the field is. OS path is a newer feature where essentially we have a path object that lets you like dice up paths a lot easier. It's less relevant for file paths, but it's very relevant for things like registry keys or even zip files that you might want to do some ninja stuff to like the content of what's inside, and you just might have formatting issues if you with registry keys in particular. You might have formatting issues if you try to like try just to do regex on it, or try to manipulate the details. So file size, I'm getting distracted here. It's probably better if I copy it. So we'll just have a quick look. Maybe we'll do created 30 as well. And then we'll hit play. And there are the files we're detecting. So you can see we've got, let's remove the saying we're not used to. So remove all the directory. So we've got several files detected, psexec, procdump, sdelete, test, and interesting and alternate data stream in there. But it's worthy to note, not all the files that we found are in there. So in the lab, the next question was, how would we find those? And the answer is with the USN journal. So we run pretty much the same process. And forensic USN is the artifact that I have used. And same kind of thing. We do perf logs. And it's / for this one. And anything that is not a / repeated. So we're going to look for files here. Now, if we go back, typically you'll have a description of like the regex format that you can use, and an idea of how you can use the artifact. This is something that's really important to get in the habit of doing, and I didn't because I know the content well. But always read the description to get an idea on the regex. Like a lot of the bugs that I hit when I'm doing analysis is I'm using someone else's artifact, and I don't know how they set it up, right? So in this one, for instance, if I was to put like a C there, it wouldn't return any results, and I might not know that. And this is probably one of the challenges of Velociraptor is because it's so freeform. You need to kind of really get to know the content and kind of figure it out how it works for you and your workflow. So I'm just going to hit go on that. And it should be fairly quick. As I mentioned, you can view the logs. You can see Defender's doing its job. But here we've got 233 results, which is interesting. So click on the results. This is the USN journal, and people may not kind of know that from background, but essentially NTFS is a journaling file system. So it records like a flight recorder of all the events that have happened, right? Now, typically it just records things like the file name and the MFT ID and sequence. And there's a lot of workflow that we can do here from an analysis viewpoint if you want to do forensics. But what Velociraptor does is we actually parse this full path. So that becomes really, really powerful, because if you were going to do traditional forensic analysis on the USN journal, you need to pull the MFT, you need to pull the USN, and then you need to run a script, or you need to run a tool that will kind of join them up and do this parsing for you. But we do it remotely, we do it live, we do it in a few kind of seconds. So from a hunting perspective, you can kind of get some really nice kind of telemetry type detections with files that you kind of can get with an EDR, but you're doing it just natively on the Windows OS. So here we're going to use Notebook again. Always remember to hit recalculate as well. Like if you jump into the Notebook, you'll find that if there's incomplete results, it will just return those. So hitting refresh will make sure you've got the latest result. So we're off to deleted in the lab. So if we hit deleted, what did I do? Oh, of course, I left out equals. Need to learn to type as well, I guess. The reason. So here's another trick that I do. If you want to see everything, just hit where true. Now let's try this. The cool thing about doing like this regex where query is it's case insensitive. So these are all the files that have been deleted. You'll find there's ones that aren't deleted in there because I ran this script twice. But it gives a good lead on what we're after. So say you want to kind of have an easier view. And this is the theme I hope you're kind of getting with Velociraptor in essentially this munging of data is the power in the platform. It enables us to do really high-level data analysis without like much effort. So I'm just going to, in this case, do group by full path. And we're going to list full path. All right, so essentially I'm saying, hey, tell me about all the unique. Spotted that. It is case sensitive for the field names. Tell me about all unique paths that we have. And you can see there's extra files in there and we have evidence of that. Now, of course, we could, get timestamps and stuff if we were doing analysis, but from a detection viewpoint, this is super cool. Like you might write a detection that will go look for like PowerShell or zip or dump extensions that are kind of in unusual places in your environment, and then run it, every couple of days to make sure that you hit the retention period of the USN. Kind of cool stuff. The other section of the lab, I think we talked about ADS, but we've also got I think I've got EA Hunter in here. No, I don't. It's in a different section, but essentially we've got alternate data stream visibility, which you kind of saw before. So if we have evidence of download, here, and if you read the instructions, get rid of that. If you read the instructions, it's essentially looking for zone identifiers in C users, and it's just parsing it out, right? Velociraptor, like I said, there's nothing real special about it. It just gives you the capability to do really cool things. So C perf logs. I've already generated data, so I know there's stuff in here. Remember, all of this is happening live in a live demo way, so this is pretty awesome. And you can see here we've got fake, and I added like a IP. This is kind of cool because what you could do is run this command and maybe search for, any reference URLs that had an IP address as a detection mechanism, right? For a detection of maybe bad guys downloading files directly from IP addresses. Because how often do you see IP addresses in the zone identifier ADSs? It's pretty rare. So next up, we're going to run ADS Hunter. And this should return more interesting results, target perf logs. I've added some exclusions for some kind of common ADSs that you see in a normal Windows environment. You can remove them if you want. It doesn't make a difference when we're targeting like this. But it's kind of interesting to run content like this across lots of machines when you're hunting. And I pretty much have lots of engagements with a few thousand machines regularly. And I get a good viewpoint on different sites for topics that I research. And ADSs are definitely an interesting one to see how prevalent they are. And you can see that's finished already. When we click on results, I'll get a notebook, it's probably easier. We've got the zone identifier that we found before. What I wanted to show was here, the MZ header, which is kind of cool. And as I mentioned before, we've got that content field that if you wanted to, you could literally search for MZ headers. You could search for other strings that were in ADSs. And this is the power of visibility to give you that kind of flexibility. Okay, so that's it for exercise 1. Let's now work on exercise 2. Okay, so exercise 2, we're looking at just generating some event logs, and I'm using ISO mounting as the detection point. This is a really cool use case that I pretty much run all the time. One thing you'll need to note though is I'm using Red Canary's install script here, and you'll find that you'll need to disable Defender. So I've actually already done that. But if you haven't, you'll probably find Defender will choke on some of these steps. But what it's doing here is we're literally just going to the Red Canary page, getting this ISO. It's then mounting it and then executing the link file that is inside. Now, if you have a look at the slides, I've got a nice picture of kind of the workflow that I see a lot of from a detection viewpoint. And like I said, I run this regularly, and it finds lots of evil and lots of evidence of like ISOs run from temp, etc. In this case, it's just running calc, but I'm going to show you hunting in the event logs. So now that's been generated, we can come back to Velociraptor. The examples I gave you was this EVTX hunter. Now this cool query that I wrote a while ago, but essentially what it enables us to do is grep through the event logs. And this is really, really cool, right? Like this, I pretty much made this to emulate my workflow of using like Plazo to parse event logs and then grep for strings through it as an investigation and detection capability. But what this does is it lets us do it live, which is kind of awesome. So what I'm going to do is, if I can find the script again, I will pretty much search for a keyword. So say we're interested in ISOs, like we could just search for ISO in general. Or if you know the event log, you could target up here. But I'm not going to target. I'm just going to show you like a blind string search because it works and it's really cool, right? So say you've got an ISC or something that you're interested in. You can box by time as well. You can throw that out there, and it will literally go through all the event logs, grep out what's interesting, and then return the results. And this is so powerful. I will hunt any ISC in an incident, or if I'm interested in just detecting stuff, I run that through this artifact. And like if the customer's got like Sysmon or something that collects telemetry, you're getting the benefit of telemetry as well. And you can see in that case, I have got 18 hits, and we've got, well, see, it's returned the PowerShell script block log. It's returned VHDMP log, so you can see the mounting, right? And this is super, super cool, right? Like you can see, it's also got the defender log that blocked this the first time I ran it before I ran the script. This is so cool, and I really recommend you having a play. And if you are going to use Velociraptor, learn this artifact. The other thing I didn't touch on was the ability to box time as well. So that's the other kind of technique I run with this. Instead of running with ISCs and keyword searches, what I do is I'll hit anything, or you might even use an ISC as well. Then I'll box time around, like a minute or a minute or two of what I'm interested in. And again, the same thing. It's just an amazing capability to pull event logs up. I found evidence that I didn't even know existed, event types that by using this query. But what I'm going to kind of cover off is our exchange. So one of the big things about Velociraptor is we have a big user community, and part of that is stored in the artifact exchange. So we've got this import artifact exchange, and I think I covered it before, but running that will pull down all of our community content, right? And I've added lots. I've got colleagues that have added lots. It's just the place that we put content that may not be, official content. We may not have tests for it, but it enables people to share things quickly, and things like ISCs are a great example here. So I've just ran the artifact exchange, and then if I go back to my machine, we then will have an ISO hunter here. And you can read the description, blah, blah, blah. Microsoft's decision to block macros meant people use ISOs. And what it's doing is it's doing the same thing, EVTX Hunter, but it's using a very targeted detection. What I have is I've got a whole bunch of scripts that run a whole bunch of EVTX Hunter kind of queries as like a regular compromise assessment thing. And I recommend doing the same. I might release it to the public in the next few weeks. I don't know. We'll see how we go. But you can see the targeting glob. It's when you're using EVTX Hunter targeting, it's so much more efficient because you're just going through this one log. But you can use wildcards here. Like I often will put like star PowerShell star to hit all the PowerShell logs. Target VSS is really cool. If there is VSS installed, you can go back and see the history. This particular log generally lasts a while because there's not a huge amount of mounting on a normal machine. But when we run this, you can see it's only returning 2 this time, which is kind of cool. But that's what we're after. You can see here, the HT file name is users public, so that's pretty obviously evil. When you run this one in production, you'll often get like OS ISOs or Office or whatever tools they run. You typically see that, but it's pretty easy to spot evil. What I would do here is I would do something like VQL like this, like event time, computer, username, and then I'd put in like event data dot what VHD file name. As right? And I'd probably group by file name down here. Group by file name. Yeah. Right. And you can see that because there's only been one file name and it's grouped by, we've only got one alert. Like you could pop this up and maybe group by event ID as well. It's really kind of up to you how you want to munge the data together. Right. You get a list of event IDs too. But that's pretty much it for the lab. I've kind of shown digging through event logs. Thank you.